Now, the Labour Court has interdicted the Nehawu strike and ordered the union to inform all members to return to work. Last week, Health Minister Dr. Joe Phaahla said about 4 deaths could be linked directly to this mass action, but the union has denied this, saying government is responsible for the suffering and the deaths of patients. Let's get you some legal analysis now from Senior Associate in Employment, at Employment Law, that is, at Cliffe Dekker Hofmeyr. That's Tamsanqa Mila, who joins us via our video link this morning. And it's great to see you, Tammy. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. You know, there's no question that even under the law, everyone has the right to strike. But I wonder whether or not you reckon there's enough of an agreement about where we draw the line, because we know with that right comes limitations, because someone can still be dismissed while being involved in a strike.
Yes. So someone can be dismissed for being involved, for instance, in an unprotected strike, and that's a strike that doesn't comply with the requirements of the LRA, or they can be dismissed for unlawful conduct during a strike, but their participation in the strike overall, if it's protected and it follows the requirements of the law, is largely protected, and they would be fine in that regard.
In the case of what we've seen in the past 2 weeks or so, I mean, the health minister has said that there could be deaths that are directly linked to the strike, specifically by Nehawu. Legally speaking, if this can be proven, who would be held liable?
So the courts and the Labour Court has said this: if there is a link between the misconduct and some damage that an employer or a third party faces as a result of the strike, and there is a link between that conduct and the union could be held liable. As to whether the person can be held liable for the death of the person, I think the question would be similar, but I'm not sure if this particular issue has been tested by the courts yet.
Yeah. When you speak about the union, I think those are more broad strokes, and perhaps that's just what we're going to have to accept. But typically, if there's going to be a loss of life, I think generally in the public, there are hopes that individuals, for instance, will be held responsible for decisions that were made along the line.
So the strike, and especially in this case, you've got Nehawu, that is the identified party. They would be the ones that you want to go to, especially for cases of damages, because if you're going to go against employees, they don't have the same financial muscle as a union does. So if they break your fence, the more prudent thing to do would be to go after the union as opposed to employees. With regards to people who you have identified, suppose that you could go that route, but I just don't know if you would get the same level of recourse in terms of financial compensation, for instance, because people don't earn or don't have the same amount of financial resources as a union would.
That's interesting. And where do we place the union leaders in all of this? Because typically the directive comes from the top, right? And if we know that there is a reasonable prospect that they knew that there'd be adverse effects, but still ordered for the strike to continue or gave their workers the go-ahead, what kind of liability would they have to take on?
You could try to check it against personal liability in terms of the instructions that they gave. But again, I said it's one of those where if you want financial compensation, that financial compensation you're likely going to get from the coffers of the union and not necessarily from the leaders of the union. If you want to cite them in a personal capacity and they come and respond as to why they decided to go one side or the other, you could, but I think your real recourse is against the organizations itself. So whether it's a federation or a smaller union, it's against those people who have the money to be able to pay you should you need them.
That's interesting. We know that the strike itself has now been interdicted, but we're hearing that some unions or some members might continue with the industrial action despite that. The concern, of course, is that there are other people within the union who may not be in agreement with that decision and may nonetheless still lose their jobs. How easy would it be to fight for those people, for instance, if they ever wanted to challenge this in court? Because we know when it comes to collective bargaining and these kinds of negotiations, typically the employer, as we speak, deals with everybody as a collective and not necessarily as individuals.
So in this case, the judgments distinguish between essential workers and non-essential workers. So non-essential workers can participate in the strike and continue to participate in the strike, and they would have no repercussions over that. But continue to get paid, or rather if there's a no work, no pay, that may also apply. But they may continue to lawfully participate in the strike. Employers would have recourse against those employees that have been specifically identified as essential workers and who still continue to participate in the strike. In that case, then you would have a situation where those people may be disciplined, or the employer may decide to hold it in contempt, considering that the judgment has specifically said if you are essential, you can't continue. However, if you're non-essential, then you may continue to participate in this.
Do members of the public have any recourse here? We've seen how often there have been just ordinary citizens inconvenienced, and that's putting it lightly, especially at some of the hospitals because workers prevented people from accessing the facilities. If I, as a member of the public, wanted to take Nehawu up on that, on what basis would I, and what are the prospects of my success, for lack of a better term?
So, part of a strike is to cause inconvenience. So it would depend on the type of inconvenience. Have you lost some damage? And as I said earlier, maybe you may have recourse against the union for unlawful conduct during the strike. However, part of the strike is to cause inconvenience. It's for us as the nation to even appeal to the employer or to appeal to the government to accede because we are also inconvenienced. So that part is historically a part of our society as South Africa that is recognized. And so I don't think necessarily to say these people are causing me a delay to going to work and I don't like that would be the way the recourse is. But if they've unlawfully damaged your property or your car or anything like that, I think that you would be able to seek legal recourse.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the next obvious question becomes where do we draw the line, right? So the example you made is a clear-cut case. I think anybody would agree that perhaps you wouldn't be able to take that to court. But hypothetically speaking, let's say I'm a cancer patient. I needed treatment, and we can link the fact that I missed treatment to my cancer advancing. That kind of thing is a bit murkier, and I wonder if the law is clear enough about how to deal with that kind of stuff.
At the moment, I can't give a clear answer to that one. That is quite a murky one. But I will say that part of a strike is to disrupt. And unfortunately, those disruptions may result in those unfortunate circumstances. And that's part of the bargaining power, or that's part of the bargaining power exercise. The employer says, I won't pay you. You say that I will relieve myself or I will relieve you of my duties. And you figure out how to run your business outside of it.
Right,
so that's the tricky part.
Yeah. I think we can admit that there are lines blurred somewhere along the lines, even though at least the principle is generally accepted. Tamsanqa Mila, thanks for speaking to us and helping us think through some of the legalese around this particular strike. Tamsanqa is a senior associate with Cliffe Dekker Hofmeyr. Once again, thanks very much indeed.